As you can see, this week the topic is double. There's the Age of Women and then Women's Federation for World Peace. So one is the organization that is central to the unification movement when it comes to the role of women. And the other one is more generally the statement that we are now in something called the Age of Women, which sounds beautiful, but maybe a little bit mysterious. And this course is about the unificationism's approach to peace and its contribution to peace. So naturally, we will be talking about the organization that does that, which is WFWP. But behind the organization, there's a whole realization or whole thought process, you could say also an emotional process and development within our unification movement and in the world at large that needs to be looked at because it's very important. So here you have it, the Mother of Peace. She is, of course, Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, Holy Mother Han, is the central figure of this era of peace. And it's a fact that her husband is already in the spirit world, as we say. He passed away in 2012. And so she finds herself alone at the head of the unification movement because she was much younger than him. And that marks not just the fact that, well, suddenly one of the two, as is normal, leaves first, but it also means that she becomes now the center after being for a long time in the shadow of her husband. So there's a whole change taking place, that has been taking place for quite a while. And let's have a look. Talking about women, what we see many times in the unification movement now or then, but also now, is what I call a sea of men, or you could say a sea of black suits. Black, dark blue, anthracite gray, but you have the whole display here. And if you look at especially leaders' meetings, of course, when you have blessings, for instance, you have just as many men and women as women, and in many other occasions. But when you see the leadership of a unification movement, then, and even now, it's overwhelmingly masculine. So this old picture on the right, these are, well, all gentlemen and one woman in the middle, Reverend Moon's wife. I know them. They are wonderful people, except the person between Reverend Moon and Dr. Han, who is a former Prime Minister of Japan, called Ishii. The other three, I know them well. One of them is a very close friend. They're wonderful people. But the fact is, it's always men. And I don't need to elaborate on the other pictures, but there's one woman, and she is at the top. However, that is the big question. However, does the fact that one person who is a woman is at the top really mean that women are, I would say, not just even in control, that would be extreme, but that women have their place now if mostly everybody else is men? I think you can understand that this is a very special type of situation. And I would dare to say that many of the problems that we have now in our unification movement in Korea, especially in Korea, but also in Japan, have their origin in that particular situation. That in world history, women have practically never been in the top position. And even when they were, like Queen Elizabeth was for a long time Queen of England. But under her, it was mostly men, almost entirely. So the fact that at the top you have a female leader doesn't necessarily penetrate everywhere. And many times, and that certainly applies from everything I know to Dr. Haq Jahan, it's a very lonely position for a woman to be at the top and everybody else is men. It's not quite true, of course, there are other women, and it's getting better and better now with the younger generation, but still, it's a very lonely position because you have only as much influence as you are allowed to have. You can be yourself as much as you are allowed to be yourself. And even though the fundamental understanding is that, in our case, the person we call True Mother is in the parental position and is the ultimate leader of the unification movement. She can be that only to the extent and with the depth of the understanding and acceptance of those who are with her, even if they bow to her, which is normal in Asia. It just means a sign of respect that everybody gives each other. It's natural. It's not just because she's considered True Mother. But even though everybody there certainly sincerely wants to support her, accept her, that doesn't mean that there is a full, in-depth understanding. And for many, not necessarily a full depth, in-depth acceptance. In the last 12 years, there has been a lot of movement forward. And Dr. Haq Jahan has gradually shared many things that were on her heart about her role as mother and the role that she had before when she shared the stage, so to speak, with her husband, Reverend Moon, father, and how this gradually evolved and how she finds herself now in her position. I'm not going to go into the details of that because that's really not the purpose of this course, but I just want to share with you that the fact that she lived in an environment that was overwhelmingly masculine in a country that has a Confucian background, which is overwhelmingly male-centered, has made things quite difficult. And many of the problems that have happened are due to that. That's something I just throw out there for your consideration. I'm very convinced of that. I'm not the only one. But anyway, the great announcement made actually by her husband before he passed away, and actually quite a few years before he passed away, is that now we are in the age of women. We live in the age of women or woman, whichever, and that's a fact. And the fact that now his wife has taken over the leadership of the movement is the one central sign. And even though the accompanying signs, so to speak, of other women appearing as leaders is not necessarily always visible yet, it's the starting point. Now, the question is, what does that mean, the age of woman? Well, let's see, first of all, what has been done. Now, here you have something very recent. Actually, it's 6-7 months ago in 2025. It's an event that took place in Geneva that was co-sponsored by Women's Federation International and also UPF. And as you can see at the bottom here, amazingly, UN Women, that's not an NGO, that's the United Nations. And World Council of Churches, unbelievable. They co-sponsor something with us. It's not the first time. This is like the Vatican co-sponsoring something with us and many others. So we have gone a long ways as a movement, but specifically also as a Women's Federation for World Peace. And the title of this event was No Peace Without Women. No more wars, can we? So that's where we're at now. And so we have made quite a ways. In spite of what I just said, women are taking their role in our unification movement, they're taking on an important role in our unification movement. And here in the United States in particular, it's very much a reality. It started in 1992, officially, that's the founding of Women's Federation for World Peace in Korea on the 10th of April 1992. Reverend Moon was there, his wife was there. He made the introductory speech and then she spoke. There was lots of wind, as you can see. So it was some kind of a storm and rain. My wife was there, my mother was there, and a friend from Albania and my spiritual daughter from Kosovo. So I was well represented, so to speak. Even though I think that's not quite fair to say because it was not about me, but in any case, I had a close relationship to that. It was very dramatic. It was very difficult for those who traveled from all over from around the world. Everything was very much, it was still campaign mode, so to speak. And when the international guests, including VIPs, finally, after all that, were able to sit down and have a lunch, the moment they was going to start eating, the call came, oh, you're all invited to Japan's home. And so they couldn't even eat. And so it was that kind, many of us have experienced these kinds of situations a lot. It's a great, spiritually very uplifting. You feel very honored, and at the same time, it's very tough. So that's how essentially Women's Federation started on that day. And then very quickly, a few years later, you had what you have to admit is was an incredible breakthrough. President Bush the elder and his wife accompanied Dr. Hak Ja Han to Japan for a tour. She was the central person. She made the speeches. And a former president of the US and his wife were there in a supporting position. And it was not just one time. She spoke in various cities and they were there with her. So that's incredible, right? Later, they followed her to Washington, D.C. again. Actually, Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, I am not even sure she was there at that time. It was Dr. or Mrs. Nora Spurgeon, who was the head of the founding head of WFWP USA, and Mrs. Sugiyama, who was the first president in Japan and then followed in the United States. They were there. So immediately it started with a fantastic breakthrough of sorts. Then Women's Federation for World Peace became United Nations non-governmental organization also a few years after it was founded in general consultative status, which means the highest level of that an NGO can reach with ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations in New York, with offices in New York, in Geneva, and in Vienna. 3 of the 4 places where the UN has headquarters in the world. So this came all in very fast successions. And very quickly you had a number of many events, including, that's another typical event, first ladies and emerging leaders, where you see a number of first ladies, former first ladies from around the world, and younger unificationist leaders, not necessarily that young, some of them young. And most recently, you had, that was a few weeks ago, on the occasion of the Commission on the Status of Women, the 70th one, at the United Nations headquarters in New York, a large event with the presence and a speech by the great-granddaughter of Eleanor Roosevelt. The First Lady was involved in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the founding of the United Nations. And it made me laugh because she was presented as the great-granddaughter of Eleanor Roosevelt, but I suspect that she was not born by parthenogenesis. That means she just had a mom or a great-grandmother. She had also a great-grandfather who was FDR, President Roosevelt. So this is a little bit, in just a few words, the way WFWPI came onto the stage. A very big splash, you can say. Great success. And it is due to incredible hard work and sacrificial work by various individuals and countless people around the world, and in particular in Japan, where the Women's Federation for Peace in Asia was founded shortly before the Women's for World Peace International was founded. Much of it started with and was financed by incredible sacrifice from Japan. We know that, but it's good to remember. Japan, which is considered in our movement as the Eve nation or the mother nation now, the mother nation. So Japan really did that job of sacrificing for the world like a mother does. So it's very complex, but that's how it goes. International Association of First Ladies for Peace. I'm not going to read this. You can, pause and read it. It's interesting. It's a UPF project, by the way. So UPF and WFWP have always worked together very closely. But this one is about ladies, but it's UPF, which shows that it's all interconnected. If you read this, you have a feeling, probably, I do, that is again a lot of slogans, but it's not easy to understand what makes it different. Stand up for the central role that women and mothers have played throughout human history and as decisive contributors to reconciliation, peace building, reconstruction, and development in the wider society and world. If I hear that, I will not immediately know that, oh, that's the International Association of First Ladies for Peace, as opposed to Women's Federation for World Peace. So we have to dig a little bit. What's behind it? What are they actually doing? What does the slogan really cover? It covers the fact that many former First Ladies have come together, have been approached, come together, have been moved by what we are doing. We, in the large sense, specifically Women's Federation, are doing, have come to believe in what they are doing and have determined to support it. And what they have then done, they have brought their husbands, who in some cases were sitting presidents, in some cases former presidents, but especially when they were sitting presidents, they have brought them to speak, for instance, at our events and to do things with us. So it's a very specific type of project, but you won't necessarily guess when you read the slogans online. A few years ago, there was 92, so 2022, the 30th anniversary of Women's Federation for World Peace, and that banner is taken from a book a 500-page book that's wonderful with lots of content. It's also very heavy. So if you have the strength to carry it, and if you get one copy, if you can get one copy, I recommend it to you. It's a wonderful book, and it shows that the number of things that WFWP has done since its beginnings is just astounding. But another thing that you will see is it's not all about this and that president or first lady coming to speak. It's not all glorious stuff. The overwhelming majority of the activities of Women's Federation for World Peace is grassroots level. A lot of grassroots level investment, sacrifice sometimes, and care and love for people. Regular people, people in nations that need help. And again, you have many times Japanese WFWPI representatives going to, let's say, Africa or Asia. The current head of WFWPI in the United States is from the Philippines, Merle Balan. She has a project that's a very important project in the Philippines, which is about the environment, permaculture, how to have a type of culture that can, it's like sustainable development that can sustain itself on the level of cultivation of the land, to nourish people, but in such a way that can continue without destroying the environment. So this is something that's not immediately visible, but that is very important. These things represent the true foundation of Women's Federation for World Peace. Presidents, they can come and go. Today's president can come to speak with you. Tomorrow's president can put you in jail. So it is important to be aware that too much of that, or too much emphasis on the glorious aspect, can be misleading and can be self-defeating. We need it because we are nobody. So we need support from people. The Catholic Church at the United Nations, they represent the Pope. They don't need to go for anything flashy. They should just do their work. And even if occasionally they do things that get pushback because it's too religious, too Catholic, they don't care much because they are the largest religion in the world, 1.4 billion believers. So they don't need to do any PR, you could say, even though they do some, like everybody does, but they don't need to put that. They can quietly do what they want to do. In our case, we need to make a special effort. And thanks to the personality of our founders, which was quite extraordinary, is quite extraordinary, they were able to very quickly do that in order to allow what we are doing to reach out fast to the world and to influence people so that we can be asked to work on all kinds of projects around the world and have an impact, a concrete, lasting impact. But these things can be very fleeting. They can come and go. And permanence comes from having a wide foundation. Now, still, WFWP has many chapters. Now, WFWPI, or international, that is the worldwide organization. And then it is chapters that are World WFWP, Bangladesh, WFWP, Albania, etc. And in the United States, you have WFWP USA, and you have WFWP International, which is incorporated in New York City. So many times people get the two confused. Actually, the headquarters of WFWPI International are in Korea. That's the founding country. but it has been incorporated first in the United States because this way it can become an NGO at the United Nations headquarters, which is in New York City. So you have a kind of complex situation between Korea and the United States, and the international president today is a Japanese lady, uh, Moriko Hori. So it sometimes makes for, complications or complexity is a beautiful thing, but it can also make things a little bit complicated on occasion. So they have to navigate through that. But anyway, the point here is there are many, many national chapters around the world, and they do a lot of things. It's probably one of the most active organizations that we have. If there has ever been an organization that is just not just there by name and with a few flashy pictures, it's them. Okay, that's WFWP USA. One of their activities is the Bridge of Peace. We have just seen it a few slides back in New York City, even though that was WFWP International. But they have many on the national level. There have been many Bridge of Peace activities that are the symbolic coming together of enemy countries or white and black, or black and Asian, white and Asian, etc. It means symbolically you come together representing enemy or opposing entities, and you hug, you apologize on behalf of the past that you represent. It's symbolic, but it can lead to very deep things. The two ladies that come together and hug can become close friends, and then they can do activities together. It's wonderful, even though it's symbolic. And at first, if you're a little bit skeptical, you could say, well, okay, they go on some kind of a fake human-made bridge, and they hug, and then they go back to their seats. What's that? But actually, it has a very powerful impact, and it leads to lots of concrete work afterwards. Now, this is just an overview of all the many things that are being done within WFWPI and around it. In 2012, one of the last things that Reverend Moon did during his life, he passed away in the summer, late summer of 2012. One of the last things he did is something that he called the Able Women's UN. And to fully understand what that means, you need some unificationist theology. But next week, we will see the equivalent with UPF. So I'll just ask you to please wait for next week, and I'll give a little bit more of an explanation on that. And the Able Women's UN comes in addition to represent women at the United Nations, because the UN leadership and everything at UN and in the world in general has been overwhelmingly masculine, even though you have many women active now at the United Nations. And then it was given a more technical or technically acceptable name, Global Women's Peace Network. That is part of the activities of Women's Federation International, focus on the United Nations. The establishment of a God-acknowledging United Nations is an absolute necessary step in building a world of lasting peace. But specifically, focus on women, the role of women. That could also apply to UPF, so maybe it was not a good choice of mine. But in any case, it's true. I've looked at the national chapters of WFWP and some of them have some very interesting things. You don't always find the best explanations on the central website. So WFWP must not remain at its current level. These are the words of Reverend Moon. It must not develop to the next level by becoming essentially, you can read it, more than an NGO. WFWP should go beyond the level of a women's NGO and bring together governments, organizations, and individuals from every country to forge a unified international effort by utilizing the Global Women's Peace Network. In other words, it should become more than just one NGO, but a whole network that can revive the United Nations from the inside through the role of women. The other one is the role of spiritual leaders. The Global Women's Peace Network's aim is to build a body of NGO leaders whose collective wisdom and judgment can complement the deliberations of the United Nations, which is a body of government representatives and is overwhelmingly male. So it doesn't say replace, but complement the leaders of the United Nations. If, for instance, at the United Nations General Assembly, the yearly speeches given by heads of states, they're mostly men. Not always, not all, but mostly, overwhelmingly male. So Reverend Moon wanted to create that kind of forum or that kind of organization that can promote the role of women, not only unificationist women, but generally the role of women.